Okay. Taking a deep breath. All right. Well, welcome to the Pausecast. I'm Rachel, your host, and today I'm here with a very exciting special guest, Kori Hahn. Kori is joining me live as we're recording this from her home in Sri Lanka. Hi, Kori. Great that you're here and
Hi.
stayed up for me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be sharing about your new book called Rituals of the Soul. I've got it right here in front of me, using the 8 ancient principles of yoga to create a modern and meaningful life. And we were just chatting before we hit the record button, and it's actually not even that much about the poses. I think of yoga in my mind goes to like physical stretches and so I just cannot wait to get into this topic with you, because it sounds like it's really meaty and juicy and so much more than what we probably think. And I want to share a little bit about Kori, for those of you who are just discovering the rituals of the soul or want to learn more. So you are the founder of the community you've created called the Santosha Society. And it's a great site. There's so much there. It's dedicated to travel, surfing, and the soulful. And you host numerous trips around the world. We can even go see you, right, in Sri Lanka if we wanted to.
Yes.
For hundreds of women who study Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, and all things related to soul growth, knowledge, and fulfillment. And you spend your time there. How long have you been in Sri Lanka?
I came December 2019, so almost 2 years now.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We're spanning the globe here. Literally the other side of the world. In San Francisco as me, and then you're over there holding that other pole. So it's pretty fascinating to marvel at that with technology. But welcome to the Pausecast. Would you like to guide us in a pause?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you.
Take
So
it
let's
away.
just, okay, great. And thank you everyone for being here and listening and taking this moment for yourself. Take a moment to just close your eyes and feel the air moving in through your nose, moving down through your throat, lifting your chest, moving all the way down to the bottom of your pelvis. And then as you exhale, let it move back up without any effort, just a release. And now we'll take another deep inhale in from the crown of the head. Let it move down through the third eye, through the throat, into the heart, past the belly, the bottom of the pelvis, and all the way down into the toes. And then as slowly as you possibly can, just release that breath as it moves all the way back. Just move into your body. Move into a moment of purity with no distractions, just being here right now. And open yourself to whatever that's calling you. Thank you.
Thank you. I love just visualizing the breath as it was moving down through my body and from my crown. So I really felt that. And it felt like a wave. It was really, really helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
tell us a little bit about your story, because I know you said you've only lived in Sri Lanka for a couple of years. Prior to that, you were here in the U.S. But how did you get to be in this world of the yogis and learning about the asanas and then writing this book?
Yeah.
No small,
That's a
no,
good
just a little
question.
question. I just have this little
Yeah.
thing to know.
I know. And I was actually in Bali for 5 years before I moved to Sri Lanka. So that helped me
Never
to
been to
move
Bali.
here.
I would love to go to Bali. Yeah.
It was I just kind of was on holiday and got a bit, fell in love with it, really fell in love with someone, and it just became easy to stay. So um, traveling gave me so much openness to everything I was experiencing. Even I came back from trips and saw the States in a different way. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me guide my spiritual teachings was just who I ran into, and the different cultures I explored through the world. And yeah, so it was really fun, actually. I wrote this book as a yoga Bible without any of my story involved in the beginning. But because, like I told you, there's so much of my learnings came from these big adventurous trips or like dreams that I wanted to manifest. So in the end, the publisher and my agent and everyone got together and asked me to put more of these personal stories involved. And so that was really fun, actually, to not come at it like I was the guru writing a Bible, but more of just a girl in the world who's learned to use yoga in a simple way that's actually working really well. So
Yeah. Yes. So you've made what you've discovered work for you, which I think is key to yoga. And just like some context from my end too. So when I burned out, so my whole world is, I kind of like learned the hard way how to manage my stress. And I burned out of my job when I was at Google years ago. But one of the things that I did in the 3 months I took off was hot yoga, Bikram yoga. And I had never done anything like that before, but my brother was into it and kind of recommended it. And it was actually a really powerful process. And just, having an hour and a half in 100 and whatever degree room was very therapeutic for me. And that at the time, which I think a lot of people find with all types of yoga. And then you find the ones that work for you based on whatever that is. Kind of like a pause. Like a pause is an intentional shift in behavior, but you have to find the one that works for you, and it's not a one size fits all, depending on the day, depending on what you do. And I'm getting that from what you're saying. So it's pretty fascinating.
yeah, and I think that pause is essentially the first tangible step that the yogis gave us to do also. So we're definitely aligned in that, where you're not going to pick up something new until you almost get rid of something old to replace that behavior with, and I think same with the stress. Like I have the same tendency as you to burn quite hard at the wick sometimes, and not quite realize maybe how many projects I've put on myself and how much I can actually manage
Yeah.
stress wise, and so I had to use that pause, or how I call it creating space, to switch that behavior. And that was really the start of it all. And to realizing what you need to put in your new space even. But you have to realize, like, every time I'm doing the dishes, I get really angry. Like, okay, this isn't working for me, like you don't have to do the dishes just for whatever reason. You can ask someone else in your family to do it, or you can even hire someone in if it's that big of a deal, if it's that big of a stressor, like,
Yeah.
and so realizing that from your pause is essentially the journey I think the yogis wanted us to go on.
Yeah. And so you've got a whole chapter, like you said, it's called Creating Space. And then these aspects of different ways to create space. So you talk about creating space in the body. And can you walk us through that? Because I think sometimes we're so much on autopilot, even if we're doing yoga, right? Like we're there doing that very consciously sometimes, but do I really think about my forearm and the space that's in between my bones and my muscles? How is that helpful? And can you teach us a little bit, like how we can do that as an exercise?
I can try.
I'm sure
But
you can
yes,
do better than me.
well, I was thinking that today because my mind's been super busy lately, and I just been able to talk a lot and really let my mind get carried away. And in some ways, when you may relate with this, but when you're, now calling myself a writer, and so like every idea, I'm like, oh, is that a good idea? Should I write that down? Like my mind's just given this power that I never gave it before. And so today, when I did my yoga practice, I literally just laid down and I moved through the body like we did at the beginning of this podcast, in that very simple yoga nidra. And then I realized through that, I wasn't in my mind. I was moving part by part. And sometimes it's not even about bringing your awareness into your body as much as it's taking it away from your mind, like, and so it's just a form of meditation that takes you out of your mind and can bring you into this moment. And I just realized while I lay there, and I slowly felt like, oh, my lower back feels sore. So I'm just going to move into a child's pose and lay my third eye on the yoga mat and just continue laying here and breathing and hearing my breath and just be here in this moment. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, everything's so peaceful. And I thought, how cliche is that? There's like, yoga's never a bad idea, but it's not so much the yoga and the movement. It's just getting out of your head, I think, getting into your body, anything. Like, how are you feeling? Is it anxiety? Is your chest just beating now? What is that physically looking like?
Yeah.
And if you can tap into those physical sensations you're having, it'll be easier to know that actually every time you come to the dishes, that it's really irritating you. And then you know what you need to cut out. Because sometimes we don't even know where we're supposed to start with that. We're just so in our routine, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And like, let's use this example of doing the dishes, because my sense is like we've all got some version of that, right? For me, it might be dishes. For you, it might be like answering your emails late at night that you have to get done, or putting the deck together that's going to be out on Monday. So how can you use what your rituals are, like these eight concepts, for tuning in to know what to do with that? Because that I think is where it's so easy to get stuck, right? You're just kind of muscling through the activity to get it done, but there's probably ways you could adjust a lot of things that could help you. What's like, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, thank you. And for asking that, because see, asana, or this step of the yoga process, and the book's actually about using the 8 ancient principles of yoga. So this is one of those principles, is asana, which means postures. And I believe that postures is just meant to look at your literal body, look at your posture, and how is that making you feel? After 4 hours at the computer, look at your posture, look at your neck, look at your head. How are you feeling? And it's just a way to constantly observe yourself. And as you do that, it's easy to see. You could even start writing it down, like, oh, I started noticing actually that every time I got a message from this certain person, I feel a bit of anxiety in my chest. So maybe I just need to create space there. I don't have to make some huge plan about it. I just am going to start, like, take a week, and or every time I do the dishes, I'm really pissed that I have a teenager who isn't in here helping me.
In
There's
video
usually,
games.
yes. Yeah. And so you just really start to realize by looking at the body, what's happening. Maybe you didn't even notice for so long.
Yeah. That reminds me of a saying. So my brother's the yogi in the family. He's doing all kinds of practices, but he says the body tells a story. And I love that saying, because it's like and I've heard that from others as well. But that's what I'm getting from you. It's like the body tells a story. So if you feel that crink in your neck or the lower back pain, like that's all associated. Probably my sense is, given what you're writing, like it's all associated with specific like issues that might be happening in life, right? Like lower back. I've heard that relates to stress, which isn't really surprising because everyone has lower back pain. But
yeah, well, your
is
kidneys
that
are
accurate?
there, and yeah, I think so. And also like a fear of moving forward, I think, in the hips and stuff, like that lower back hips region is like, how am I going to hold all this up? How am I going to, and stress is in the kidneys for sure. So you don't have to know it all to realize, though, that like certain things you're doing are leading to certain symptoms and places of the body, and but yeah, I think your brother's spot on as well.
He's a wise person.
Yeah.
Also knows like yoga helps a lot. It's like de-stressful too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with these 8 principles, I know you've got 8. Can you share a little bit about like a high level of all of them, or just maybe a couple that are like, how do we get started to learn about these, like, these principles so that they can really help us reach our dreams? Because that's what you're about. And that's what I love about your book and what your work is, because we've all got dreams. And I think like the journal I have coming out is to help people journal about their dreams so they can intentionally get there. But can you share a little bit more about the actual rituals? Because I find it fascinating how these are these are literally thousands of years old in the making, right? But here they are in a modern time being of service. How fascinating.
Yes. And I'll just kind of go over the 8 steps. And I say principles because while they are separate and we can actually focus on each of them individually to develop those skills, they also, once you understand the step-by-step system, they work together interconnectedly. So I'll just explain it and then maybe it'll make more sense. But the first 2 are pretty much the yogis, just like in the Bible, they wrote the 10 Commandments, something like that. So the yogis gave us like 5 yamas, rules, and 5 virtues to live by. And these rules are quite simple and things you probably already do already, like be honest, be kind, don't steal, respect your body, and, simplify your life. Those are pretty much the rules. And then they gave us these virtues, which are, oh, sorry.
Sounds like you got a fan there. That's okay.
That's real. The only worry
the
about
real
being
world.
in Sri Lanka. Yes. But those virtues are things that if you need to make a decision, I always say just print them and put them on your wall and come back later. Don't worry too much about the rules or the virtues. But as you get into this, they might be helpful to come back to. But the virtues, like, so if you're, have an ego dream or maybe a soul dream and you're not sure, like you want to start a business, is it really for money or is it because you need the confidence of that journey, or whatever? So I believe these virtues are things that we could come back with our dream and look at our dream under this context. And so the virtues are cleanliness, contempt. I'm so sorry about the dog.
That's okay. He's just cheering you on, I think. Oh, good.
Love it. Cleanliness. So keeping clear of toxicity, keeping the body clean with exercise, not distracting yourself with toxicity essentially, or filth. I mean, it's the same way, like in college, I couldn't really study or do anything else until my house was done. Like it was always like this big procrastination to get on with life until I clean my house. But anyway, obviously the dishes thing is a personal thing, but, and then it's contentment, doing things to make you happy. If you have a passion about it, learning about yourself, studying yourself, and then, trusting in the universe. So those are the virtues. So when you come back with your dream, and if those things seem to help, they seem to align with what you're thinking, then I think you're on the right path. Now, the first tangible thing the yogis wanted us to do, like I said, you could put those rules and virtues away and come back to them in 10 years and they'll still be there, but is to create that space that you're really not going to be able to create any new with your very hectic, busy, distracted life. So we've got to learn to create more space. It's the only way to become intuitive. It's the only way to know how you're feeling, to know if you have anxiety when you're doing the dishes, if the computer is really making your neck sore. Until you observe yourself a little bit, you just don't know. So that's where you start with. And I believe that the yogis pretty much just said, come sit down, get comfortable, get really comfortable and steady, because now I'm going to teach you something good. And that was meditation. And it was pretty much like, I don't know, I'm imagining 3,000 years ago that they still struggled with the same issues we were having today, with anxiety, with grief, with heartbreak, and, all these other things. And it wasn't probably about a hamstring. I mean, it wasn't, like if you're going to go to the super wise man, and it's like for a real problem, most likely. And so they taught us, just like the Buddha, who was a yogi also, how to concentrate and how to focus. And in our modern times, like all of our social media and our devices, and even how, commercials are so short and things like that, everything's guiding us to do things quick, fast, and be busy and be productive. And that's like the speed of society. So we have to learn to concentrate and be in our body, in our moment, and to do anything, even if it is write a book or start a business, like that's going to be a skill that's going to be really helpful. And when you do learn to concentrate the mind, you can learn to move that awareness or consciousness or observation inside your body. And even if that's to listen to your kidneys or whatever, like imagine, there's parts of your inner body that are working right now. Your heart is pumping. If you get quiet enough, you might even be able to feel that. But this is the main part of what the yogis wanted us to do, is to become intuitive, to become our own guru, to not have to do anything just because it works for someone else, but figure out our own way, because the medicine for depression might be very different than the medicine for anxiety. So we're not all going to be doing the same thing on the mat. And once you get that, how to be intuitive with those three, I say simple, but like theoretically they're quite simple, but yeah, in practice,
they're really
time.
simple on paper, but then the actual application, like everything is the work, right? That's
yes, but it's all about consistency. And if you do 3 of those things every day, if you create a little space in your life and you fill it with a bit of mindfulness and concentration, and then you move in and ask yourself how you feel, you will figure out very easily what your dream is, what you want, what your inner soul's asking for. And that's what the final 3 stages or steps were about, was that actually the thing holding us back from our dream that we realize in these intuitive moments is that it's our beliefs why we can't that's holding us back. We have everything inside of us we need. So it's learning these blockages, the fear, the craving, the aversion. These are typical things we all hold ourselves back from our dreams for. And once you see those blockages for what they are, you really don't let them bother you as much. It seems like, if you just kind of observe them and let them go. And then this is
so good. Can I jump in there? Because I think we'll get to the final one. Because I think this is so relatable, where we want to push away the pain, right? Like whatever that means, whether it's physical in our body or if it's emotional or just something that we dread. I think that that's the aversion. And what I'm hearing is this recipe you have. I love you call them the niyamas, right? These are these virtues, these principles, like like cleanliness, right? And then the awareness, to me, like the way I think about it is, when we shine the light on whatever it is that we are observing, then we can actually do something about it. Then we can actually move into a direction. Because if we don't know where we are, it's like, how do we know where we want to go? And then we're just then that's when we feel the panic or the lostness or the anxiety, because we feel like we cannot control it. But the idea is like, well, hey, like, let's create some space, get in an understanding of what's happening so that you can shift it. And that takes courage, right? Like that's where you're in the asana, the pose, or doing something that can really feel like what you really need in the moment, the medicine, like you said.
Yeah, it takes so much courage, and it's painful. It is. I think even, every meditation retreat I went to, I thought I was just going to like be blissed, but it's not. It's like, no, here's all your trauma so you can release it, so you get an afterglow of bliss. Like the practices aren't like, floating on rainbows or anything. That's really the work, as like Nicole LePera, the doctor who wrote How to Do the Work, she talks a lot about this work, and it is work. But that's why if you make that work into little rituals, it seems doable. Like it doesn't have to be an hour seated meditation in order to teach your mind to concentrate. You can do 100 breaths a day, 10 breaths while you walk out to the car, 10 breaths a little later. Just make little moments, of these steps. And then you're doing big work in little bits.
And that's the last step. Is that what it is? The ritual side? Is that what you
know? So the rituals go along with each of the steps in the book. But so you have, the 2 sections are the intuitive rituals, which are the ones I just explained. But then you have the manifestation ritual, like which we were talking about, which is really the beliefs, the misconceptions of how it's going to work. A lot of our mind stuff and limiting belief stuff, that we hold within ourselves. And once you realize what's holding you back, it's like, how often, do you hear someone say like, I just love to go to India, but when I retire and when my daughter finishes college and then my husband has his knee replacement surgery, so then you just actually never make it there. And it's like, well, those were just all the blockages. You just like literally listed them out. So do you want to go to India or do you not? And when I is just a procrastination. So like, let's go in because those are the blockages why you're not allowing yourself to thrive now.
I hear
And
that all the time.
yeah.
And I know I fall into that too, where it's just like we're just so zoned in on those the negativity, where we're kind of like mired in the distress of it, right? And then that's what we focus on, and then that's just, of course, gonna stop us because that's what we're focused on.
Yeah.
Not so helpful. Yeah.
And so, and actually, even I think BKS, a famous yogi, Iyengar, he even said like that step of dharana is actually, can you hear me? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
is concentrating so much on what you want that you don't let what you don't want affect it. And so it's a concentration, you know, and that's what that stage translates as, which, you know, might be a far call from what, as I describe it, but I truly believe that if you know what you want, you've just got to realize all the things stopping you, and then it becomes very possible.
Right. And this is the theme you keep talking about, is this intuition strengthening, and that can lead to deeper insights. But if you don't have the space, if you're kind of so to speak cluttered with other things, I noticed you had like a Marie Kondo quote, and I love her too, and she's really helped me with you know, the life-changing habits of tidying up, that if anyone knows her, that's what it's all about, is creating a space, whether it's in your body, through the yogi, through the practices, the rituals, principles, I should say. That's how it works. And so this is something I think all of us can do, right? Like we all have this intuition, but my sense is, even me, I'm learning how to develop this now, where I thought maybe I'm just not gifted there. And so what would you say to those folks who are kind of in that camp of like, well, I guess I have intuition, but I don't know how to do that. And I know it's sort of challenging to get our heads around that if we've just thought our way through a lot of things, or we're masters in the cerebral space, right? Because I feel like in the knowledge economy, that's kind of a lot of what we do. Even if we practice yoga, it's like that's 1 hour of 24, and then you got 23 hours where you're like, oh, what happened there? Like, how do I keep that and develop my intuition for anybody, so that we can be connected to know what we want, and our dreams can be realized and manifested?
Yeah, I think that it does become more challenging the more logical you are, the more science-based, especially, you know, the last step we didn't talk about is actually about believing in yourself and self-worth and trusting in the universe, and really, you know, manifesting these things that you want and going after these things is a path to get there, and as a, you know, an offering, a way of service to God. And the more that you manifest, the more you'll realize it. But yeah, of course, that's the reason why it takes so much courage, as you said earlier, to go after these things. And when you do feel a little nudge, to start really listening to that and saying, oh, this is something I actually want for myself. And I'm not going to think of anybody else, my kids, my husband, my dogs, why I'm not doing this, but I'm going to do it, even if it feels illogical. And even if everyone I tells me it's illogical, because that is what happens. You're absolutely right. We convince ourselves that we don't need that yellow Cadillac. It's just so impractical. I mean, this is a terrible example probably, but like that the new Prius, you know, would be so much more gas economical or whatever, you know, and you just, but then like you would have so much more joy maybe with that yellow Cadillac, you know, like you just, and that's the thing. They even have scientifically proven that people that have chosen a car with 24 hours to choose it versus others who had like 24 days, usually the shorter spanned car purchasers were just happier with their gifts. They didn't have 100 other cars that they had compared it to. They didn't think about that gas mileage for 3 days. You know, they just had a good feeling about it, and they got it and they liked it. And so we can research things into the until they're not fun anymore, and
Right. And that's like the play aspect I hear is like bringing that in as an invitation to not think so much about it, but to just enjoy and being in the moment, like the beingness of it. Right. So if you're in that car that brings you joy, that's you fully alive, but it's a facilitator for that. And like you can be enjoying that and grateful for that. And I know gratitude, it sounds like, is one of these tools as well. Like you mentioned it in that unblocking and becoming chapter. Can you talk a little bit about like, why is gratitude so powerful in your own experience for just like for this unblocking? Yeah.
Well, it does change, actually. Scientifically, it's changing the brain. So I've always loved when you can get the science behind
Yeah,
the
me
yoga,
too. We love
and
science
so
here. Yeah.
yeah. And so the neuroplasticity of your brain is actually changing. And there's something else too, not just being grateful and like coming up with that list, but you do start seeing things with more gratitude generally because you're creating a habit of it. But also I read, I think it was maybe Pam Grout's book. I can't remember where I read this, but she said something about like, if you ask yourself to prove something to yourself, by golly, that it just happens. You just find proof everywhere. Like, instead of saying like, oh, who really loves me? But like, look at all the ways I'm loved. It's almost like your brain wants to prove things to you. And so both of those practices, I feel like, really just get into the brain and start retraining where maybe, there's grand canyons of patterns in your brain.
There are grand canyons of patterns over eons and millions of neuro firing. Yeah. I think that's such a powerful reminder. And gratitude can be a game changer in how we think about things, because you're literally focusing on the positive, kind of that redirection of what of where our thoughts can go. So that's incredible. And thank you for reminding that for us. And is there any, like, speaking of rituals, because I know this is something that I try to create for myself to have like a bedtime routine, for example, or just something to wind down or wind up in the morning, or something that energizes me. Do you have a favorite ritual that you do that's something that aligns with something that you bring in one of these ways of just the presence and what helps? What's your favorite one?
Yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit of what I would do. And, I'm usually like, I preach a bit that we can be flexible with our timing. And I used to be so disciplined, almost to the point of being like self-shaming about it, that if I didn't get to my yoga mat in the morning before eating, or all these rules, and then I had a kid and it was like, yeah, okay, so my meditation practice is going to happen when I'm breastfeeding because I have no time, and like, it had to become my life. And I couldn't just stop living my life for these practices. So now I don't make a ritual to pull my mat out every morning, but I do try to get, like I said, 100 breaths. I feel like that's my concentration
100 conscious
practice.
breaths.
Yep, 100 conscious breaths, usually broken up, like I said, between breastfeeding and getting my kid to school and whatever else. The gratitude thing has always been a good one for me. And also picking one pose. So if I'm lucky enough to actually sit down and do my conscious breaths, which is a really beautiful way to do it, like, and get into that ritual at the edge of your bed would be wonderful. Just, sometimes it's not as easy. So just make sure you do it whenever you can. But, yeah. And then if one pose or one part of your body or you have a certain feeling and you think there's one thing you can do that would nourish that or nurture yourself somehow, then I'll just pick that. I'll literally every day let my intuition kind of guide me to what I need. And even today, I just was laying around the yoga mat so much. I actually did get up and do a physical practice, which I rarely do anymore. I just don't. And I just barely moved. And I thought, what? But I could hear my mind saying, go, like, do another vinyasa. Come on, And then I was just like, obviously I don't even need that. And so realizing that, just asking yourself, what do I need? Conscious breaths and some gratitude. And that should get things moving in a good direction.
Yeah. So the ritual could be even just, what do I need right now? and then you've got maybe
the best one of all.
your three orders, or like the three things you'd want to do. Maybe it's 100 breaths, maybe it's three things you're grateful for, maybe it's like mindful brushing teeth, whatever it is.
Yeah, a jog. My mom likes tennis. I mean, and to be so out of the box with it too. I mean, it doesn't have to just look like yoga. It could be singing Aretha Franklin if you're healing heartbreak and you really need that. Yes, dancing.
Yeah. And my last question here, because I'm curious, do you have a favorite pose, even though you don't do them too much? Someone who's been so under like really in the world of yoga a lot. Like, do you have a favorite?
I do. And now it's Shavasana. I love just laying there.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're really like, I feel like you can use poses for things like, so I was really into arm balances for many years, like through my 20s, as I was an Ashtangi. So I had a really strong body.
Yeah.
And, you know, a few years after that, I started my business. So I always feel like I needed that strength. I needed that confidence from those arm balances. Then I got really stressed. You know what I mean? Then I started doing like child's pose all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And I always used the main pose or the main style I was doing, you know, to help me with what I was really overcoming at the moment. And even it can look like, you know, even sometimes now I say, your yoga practice is really just anything that's nurturing you. Take an hour, take 20 minutes to do that. It doesn't have to look like movement. You can bring your computer over and study astrology if it makes you believe in miracles more, you know, but like, what do you need?
Well, it's these principles. That's what I'm getting is like, it's not it's like that, whatever is your practice. It could be learning these principles, reading your book could be the yoga, the practice for that week, for that month.
Yes. And let it change, because every day we do too.
Yeah. Not be so set in stone, right? That's the fluidity of it. Which can be really powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
Powerful stuff. Thank you. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know Shavasana, I probably wouldn't do it justice to explain it. I know what it is, but how would you describe it?
It's called corpse pose in English. So it's pretty much just laying back, letting your wrist fall to the side, laying down flat on the ground and letting your legs just fall and your hands fall open, completely relaxed, completely neutral.
Yeah, it's just, and I know, yeah, it's so helpful after whatever you're doing, or just to lay there, corpse foot pose. Yes, I forgot the English name, actually. That's helpful. Yeah. So wow, what an incredible journey, Kori. And tell us a little bit, like, where can we find out more about you or learn more if we wanted to just dive into the world of what you offer with this book and with meditation and all of those things?
Yeah, thank you. So the book is recently out, only a few weeks now. And, you know, that's just, God, aren't books incredible? Because you put so much time and energy into them that the points you want to get across are so eloquently written. And it's just, I just hope that if someone's looking for kind of how to fill their pause, this is a good option. But there are meditations on my website that go along with it. And if you really want to put the theory into the practical, there are some free programs to get you started and to integrate these concepts a little bit more and familiarize you with them. And that's all at santoshasociety.com, SANTOSHA Society.
SantoshASociety.com. I'll put that in.
And that means that's one of the niyamas. It means contentment. So it just means, you know, how are we all going to be content? How are we going to get there?
Yeah. So we'll put that in the notes, the link to your site, santoshasociety.com. You can download meditations, learn more about the book, and your book's available everywhere pretty much online, and you can get it, which is exciting. And I think it's a powerful pause is to read this, Rituals of the Soul, using the 8 ancient principles of yoga to create a modern and meaningful life. And just one last question here. Is there anything else you think that you'd like to leave us with, just as a final thought, or anything that you think could serve us in this world of pausing to thrive and helping us to lead the meaningful life that we are all capable of living?
Yeah, lately I've just been called to, when we do take that pause and there's pain or there's discomfort and it's not as beautiful as we'd like for the story to unfold, that is a part of the process. And it's so normal. And I think if we all would just normalize that a little bit more in our own lives, like, we would just live so much happier and so much more content. And so lately it's like, oh, you wrote, in many of these interviews I hear, oh, you wrote a book about dreams, you must just be loving it. And it's like, no, your dreams are a dream until they're your reality, and then they're your reality, so you're still just, you have another dream that comes up, and we're always moving through that pain and that discomfort and that suffering. And so we might as well just start normalizing that a little bit. That's
Thank you
what
for
I'm
that
telling
reminder.
myself.
Yeah, thank you for that
Thank you.
reminder, because pain is part of being human. And it's actually, yeah, what I'm hearing is like being with, well, this is what I know my coach would tell me, being with my pain is part of me being me, and like emerging as my authentic self that is more full, like more whole. And because that's my unknown parts of myself. Those are the parts that I may have neglected over time for whatever reason. And all of us can kind of think about that. So thank you for sharing that powerful thought. And I would say for anyone listening, where maybe you've resonated with the principles or some of these niyamas, like the values, share this episode, like share this out with the world. Maybe there's a friend who could use some support right now, and they're a yogi, or you're a yogi and you just relate to this, or you've got a class where you take and you think that this could be a great way to share. So I invite you to spread the love and offer this as an offering, right? Where you could help someone out. And what better way to do that than just help people understand that there's solutions out there. And I think your book, Kori, is a great one for it. So thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for you to be here, speaking of gratitude, on the podcast.
Thank you.